Yeah, and also related to that, is there anything specific that could make your VS worse, coming from caffeine, weed, screens, or anything else, as far as you know?
You know, the weird thing was, right, I got very obsessive with what was making my visual snow worse. And I think it was that obsessiveness that was actually making it worse in my own eye. And maybe it wasn't worse, because it's one of those weird things, right? You think it's worse, and then it's worse, and then it's not worse. And it's just like that obsession, that OCD about that. Honestly, I can't tell you what made my visual snow worse, or I can only tell you what made it better, to some degree. I can tell you what made my anxiety worse was, obsessing about it, being in the groups. Caffeine, I've never been a coffee drinker, so I didn't really know that. I did quit alcohol, but I think that's something that I wanted to do anyway before this all started. So yeah, I mean, that helped me. And even now I drink very rarely, the odd glass of wine, and my clarity of thought is a lot better than it used to be. So, these kind of things, as I said, with the supplements, try not to think of them as doing it to fix your VS, right? What I explained in my protocol, it's not just about healing, it's about completely transforming yourself. So everything that you do is because you want to become a better version of yourself. So if you think about it in that way, you're good. So whatever you think, if it's diet, if it's exercise, whatever you think's good, do it, right? It's not going to affect your VS. That's a misconception,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go from the questions in the comments 1 second. So Farah is asking, how did you start visualizing and changing patterns on your brain while having the symptoms and feeling scared?
Yeah. So that's when you have to do it the most. The brain retraining stuff is, as I say, it's part of your toolkit. Okay, so what I'm putting out there is a toolkit, so that when you start to feel panicked, you can do a vagus nerve exercise, you can do a brain retraining exercise. Okay, so what you have to understand is what's working for you, right? When you're panicked is not helping you. Okay, so that mindset that you've got into, and we all get into that mindset of chronic illness. Once you start to get chronically ill, once you start seeing doctors, once you start affirming that illness in your mind, once you start going to these groups and start getting panicked, right? Your body every day is developing that pattern, and day by day, that pattern's going. So by the time, you're 3 months, 6 months, a year in, right? You're not you anymore. You're just a set of patterns that you've developed. So what we need to do is slowly start rolling that back. So, brain retraining is the best thing you can do in that situation. So I kind of mentioned this in my protocol, a lot of different tips that I give you for when you're very panicked, your go-tos in the toolbox, and brain retraining is definitely something that is extremely powerful, but you have to stick with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly like, how do you say, changing the patterns in my brain was the first step that I had to,
Yeah.
like, really completely erase the panic attacks away from my life, and also like kind of making this better in a way, because
Yeah.
I used to always, I think that's something that everyone does, like playing with the visuals now. What I mean with this is, for example, if you have palinopsia, you will look at an object and look away to see if the image is still there. And of course it's going to be there, but it's like something that your brain does because you've trained your brain to do so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once,
I mean, I said it in my videos, who goes around staring at walls for 3 hours a day, that's just insane. I mean, any normal person who stares at the wall for 3 hours, eventually that wall is going to start moving or shaking, or something is going to happen.
yeah,
Normal people don't do that, it
yeah.
becomes obsessive, so you got to start thinking of it like obsessive compulsive disorder, and you need to start doing this brain retraining. So you're getting yourself, that's the first step, get yourself out of panic, and then you start to implement the other stuff. Yeah.
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 Someone's asking, can this work for, oh, I don't know how to read that, rheumatoid arthritis?
Rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah.
It's funny because arthritis is a big one. I have people in my family who suffer from arthritis, and they were given, I mean, it's just crazy, the medical industry. I mean, I think one of my family members has been given a cancer drug to deal with arthritis, and it's just insane. You know, what I'm trying to say is everything that I put, to be honest with you, I don't know, because I've not experienced rheumatoid arthritis, okay? So I'm not going to tell you that this is going to work for you. All I know is that this protocol that I've put together is going to balance your nervous system. It's going to get rid of that panic, and it's going to get you to your best form of yourself, your best health. Right? So everything that I'm doing is pushing you towards, you know, becoming that best person, you know, calming down the nervous system. And I would say that, you know, if you start the protocol and you feel positive changes, then that's fantastic. It's working for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, now we're gonna get to the juicy stuff.
I thought that was the juicy stuff. Oh,
Yeah. So, I was talking to actually two people the other day, having a chat, and they were really interested because you attacked the personal initiative a lot in your video. You attack all the Facebook groups, you start to attack doctors, and they were like, I think this is a conspiracy theory. So I just want to ask if you can elaborate on you know, this.
Yeah,
This.
I need to get my tin hat because I'm a conspiracy theorist, you know, and I'm going
Yeah.
all crazy. Yeah. Well, firstly, I would say, I mean, these days, what is the someone gave me a phrase these days. It's like, what's the difference between conspiracy theory and fact? These days, it's about 6 months. So that kind of plays out in society right now. We're learning a lot about everything. I mean, just look at the world now. Things are coming out, leaks are coming out. People are starting to realize things, and you know, I'm not attacking anybody. You know, I'm just putting my opinion out there. You know, I have no problem with doctors. I think doctors I've met fantastic doctors in my life. I've met the doctors that I met who, when I was going through this, I wouldn't let cut my toenails, if I'm honest. They were just absolutely hopeless, and they literally, I lost 2.5 years of my life, and I almost died, and that was all due to me walking into that doctor's waiting room, discussing with the doctor, being put on pills, and almost losing my life. So, you know, I have a very personal axe to grind, but obviously I know that it's not the same for everyone. And I know there are great doctors out there. I just think when it comes to chronic illnesses, and this is not just me, the literature backs it up. If you go and read books on neuroplasticity, if you go read new books on you know, medical healthcare, etc., you will find that there's a lot of research and stuff that's coming out now. I mean, we're only just starting to learn about the brain. It's fascinating, the amount of research that's going on. Joe Dispenza's doing fantastic work with the brain right now. You know, we don't know anything about the human body, right? Like, and Western medicine, as I said before, tends to have much more of kind of a pill approach, right? Which is, take this pill. You've got to understand, when you go into a doctor's waiting room and you explain these symptoms to a doctor, you have to understand a doctor's not going to know what and it might not be their fault. They might be trying to help you, but you have to understand all that they have in their toolkit, right? In most cases, is just a bunch of pills, right? And what I would say is, if all of you have the chance, go out and watch something called Dope Sick. Okay, it's a new I don't want to say documentary, but it was a series that was released recently, and it won a lot of Emmys, and it was all about the opiate crisis in the US, about how 300,000 people died because doctors and pharmaceutical companies knowingly gave people medicine that they knew was addictive. These people who had backaches or certain aches, right? And it just makes me think, like, these people who go in with visual snow and are given like seriously hardcore bipolar medications, stuff that they should be nowhere near, right? And you look at the opiate crisis, and that played out, and look how many people died, right? And you know, we have proof that in a lot of cases, right, Western medicine does not have the answer. And it's been my experience that with conditions like this, your doctors don't have a clue, really do not understand. If they give you a pill to resolve this, they have absolutely no idea, right, what they're doing. And often that you're going to end up going down the journey, right, that I went down, which I know a lot of people have gone down, which is just basically moving you further away from recovery, right? Because the more that you're, you know, using these pills to suppress your trauma and suppress those symptoms, right? You're not dealing with the symptoms. You're not going to the root cause, right? You're not allowing the body to heal. Way I healed, And if I had to put it into a few sentences, was I got out of the way of my body healing. My body wanted to heal. My body had that shock. It was traumatized. That nervous system got disbalanced. And my body was like, look, Sanj, just get out of the way. We're going to heal here. But what did I do? I started to take pills. I went down the doctor route. I started to freak out. I started to make myself more scared. And it was only until I realized that, and then I was like, hang on, this is not working for me. And who does it work for? It does. I mean, you know, the groups, you know, I don't attack people. When I look at these groups now, especially the VSI group specifically, okay, when I look at that group, it's generally the same people that have been in that group for about 3 to 4 years. Even when my brother got sick, and he told me when I first got sick, these are the same people that own those groups. And what I see, it's kind of like the Matrix. I don't see people, I see trauma loops. It's almost like dots and dashes. I see people's just trauma playing out again and again and again and again and again. And it's not their fault, because what's happened, and this is not just me, if you go to any trauma book, if you go to any top trauma consultant, Peter Levine's stuff is amazing. There's something called trauma denial. If you've been traumatized for such a long period of time, the trauma's taken over your brain and it starts to communicate as you. So what happens with a lot of these people in these groups is they've been sick for such a long period of time that if you go in there and you say to them, guys, we can help you, right? Their brain, imagine we talked about patterns earlier, their brain has been relaying that same pattern to them day in, day out. You're sick, you have visual snow, you're sick, you're sick, you're sick. So if you tell these people, right, you're not sick, you can fix yourself, what do you think their brain is going to do? Their brain's got so comfortable being in that zone, the ventral vagal zone that we call it, right, that it's going to have so much resistance that it's going to basically come out with the comments that they do in the groups, like, oh, this sounds like BS, this sounds like this sounds, you know, fake, it's snake oil and all that kind of stuff. It's just trauma loops playing out again and again. And, you know, I feel sympathy, and, you know, it's not that I'm trying to attack these people with the VSI. If you look at the VSI group, I mean, it doesn't take you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. If you go in that group, you're already scared, because every post from the VSI is, do you have tinnitus? Do you have visual snow? Do your ears ring? Do you have anxiety? It sounds like one of those adverts that you see on the US, you know, when they're selling antidepressants, you know. Do you have this? Do you walk straight? Do you walk a little bit to the left? Do you walk a little bit? We have a pill, you know, for everything, you know. And when I go in these groups, I mean, I'm scared and I'm basically cured. When I go in those groups, I get scared. So I can't imagine if somebody is like starting this journey, going into those groups. So I don't understand, like, as I said, that organization, the VSI, actually want to have a call with me. The owner, Sierra Dome, and her father, I think, they want to have a call based on the video. And I'm waiting on them. So, I mean, I told them that I'm available. So we'll see if anything happens from that. I just personally, I believe maybe they have the right intentions, but I believe that they're going about it the wrong way. And I don't believe that anything that they do will help people with visual snow. I mean, it's not, I don't believe that, I know that, because, you know, the solutions that they came out with, I tried them all. And, you know, looking back, it's just ridiculous. You know, the human body doesn't work like that. You need to understand how the human body works, and you need to look at it holistically, not just look at individual symptoms and that kind of stuff. You need to understand why people got this way and the amount of trauma and the nervous system that got out of balance that caused these conditions. So yeah, that's kind of a long answer to a short question. But as I said, I'm not here to try and attack anyone. I don't have time in my life to start these conversations and these feuds. I'd give you one little story, and this is very personal to me as well. In one of the groups, when I was in the depths of sickness, and you know what it's like, and I'm sure you guys know, you know, when you go in these groups, you have somebody that comes on and they're like, you know, oh, I fixed my visual snow reduced by 10%, and everyone jumps on, and it's like, you feel like your heart goes up and you feel like there's a bit of optimism. And then 10 minutes later, somebody comes on and is like, I've had this for 20 years, it's never going away. And how does that make you feel? Your whole body just goes, you're like, no, I can't deal with this anymore, you know, kill me now kind of thing, right? And unfortunately, you know, a couple of the guys that I was speaking to did actually commit suicide, which I found out, you know, 2 years ago. And, you know, it was horrific, because I know that I could have helped some of these people. Do you know what I mean? And I know that these people committed suicide not just because of their condition, but because of the environment, the toxic environment that was being created in some of these groups. And all I have to say is, to those people who put out a lot of negative stuff in these groups, okay, just be careful, because you might get a 15-year-old, you might get a 14-year-old. I have them contacting me, right? I had a call with a 17-year-old the other day who was crying constantly, and his mother got me on the phone with him. And, you know, these people, like, if you're that young and you don't know what's going on, right, you're very impressionable, right, you can take a lot from, so if you've had this for 15, 20 years, right, please do not use these groups as a way of processing or, you know, talking about your trauma, right? This is, other people are listening, you know, and just be conscious of that other people are going to come in. And I mean, even with the way the world is now, I try to be I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than just pessimistic all the time, you know. And I think when you have young people coming into these groups, I think it's the VSI's responsibility, who created that group. I think it's other groups' responsibility, people in those groups, the admins, to make sure that these younger people who are very impressionable, right, who feel like their life is over, right, get the kind of care and support that they should get, and not just have people push them down, you know, a road that unfortunately these two guys went down. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a personal experience with this. Like, my visual stuff has been very weird, because it was great the first year, and then it just peaked like last January, and that's when I found out these groups. And I remember, like, so many people were like, do you have this, like, I don't know, training when people move their hands? And like, after I read that, I started seeing them as well.
Yeah.
It's just because your train is so played. And what, you know, to be fair, I feel like I have to thank the Visual Snow initiative, just because when I first got it, that was the only thing that told me, okay, I have Visual Snow, and I had something to give to the doctors.
Yeah.
You know, all of their videos are about, you need to relieve your stress, calm down, but you don't tell me how to do that. You know, they tell me to meditate, give me tools to meditate, because if I'm a beginner, I don't know how to do that. And also, I remember I had this really weird experience one night that I woke up and I was seeing these like swirly lines. And so I texted them on the Instagram group, and they said, you know, we have these Facebook groups, maybe ask them, and someone else maybe had the same experience. Don't do that. Don't put people helping other people, because we're all traumatized and we're all just going to put ourselves down. You know, have like professionals actually answering people, because if you throw everyone in the Facebook group, that's what's going to happen. So
and exactly. I mean, the one thing that I have to say as well, I'm a very skeptical person. I've got a degree in computer science, right? I've always been one of these people, you know, like yourself, trying to find the answer of what's going on, right? And that's drove me crazy. So I've always looked at things from a scientific point of view. And you know, all of that scientific, rational thinking, right? That was what actually got me into trouble, because I started to believe these doctors. I started to try and name my condition. And I think a lot of people, they're trying to name their condition because they want justification, right? What are your thoughts on that? You know what I'm saying, right? Like, because when people are ill, you want a name for your illness, so you can say, hey guys, I've got this. You see, I was right. You know, you understand what I'm saying, right? Because you want to tell your parents or your family, because they're like, he's got some weird dot thing going crazy. But then you can say, look at this, look at this. But you have to understand that is not helping. It's not helping you. Giving your condition a name, right? And I keep going back to this, right? Ancient civilizations, you know, if you go to India, or if you go to like East Asia or South America, people deal with these conditions in different ways, right? And they look at the body holistically, okay? Whereas in the West, as I keep saying, we've come to a point, and this is something I will discuss in other videos. I actually have doctors coming on that I will be discussing these points with, so it won't just be me talking. I'm actually studying for my naturopathic doctor license at the moment, but I will actually be getting some certified doctors who've worked for the NHS who I will be having these discussions with. So you know, I'm hoping on that. But as I said, in terms of what helped me is just looking at the body holistically, and realizing that Western medicine, a lot of it is profit orientated, and you have to understand the way the system works. So go ahead and watch Dopesick, and you'll understand how reps sell their drugs to doctors. Doctors then pass those drugs on to their patients. And one patient who's on a medication for a lifetime is worth millions to that pharmaceutical company. So just have a little bit of perspective here and try to understand how Western medicine, in a lot of cases, does operate, because you'll be surprised and shocked as well. Yeah.
Yay.